Hey, this is James here from Make Wake Marine. Today we're going to be installing our Pro 600 heavy duty T-top on this boat here. But before we do that, I wanted to show you how the T-top arrives and show you what's in the box. So we'll make a quick unboxing video for you guys. So, canvas and instructions here. I also laid out a blanket to sit the materials on since we're working on concrete. I don't want anything to get scratched. So it's a good idea to set out a blanket to start sitting your pieces on. All the installation hardware is in this box. All right, now we're gonna take all the protective wrapping off the T-top, and I'll see you in just a second. All right, now we got it unwrapped and unboxed. You can see there's two lower halves to the T-top here, the two upper halves to the T-top frame. These four pieces make up the canopy frame that goes around the top. You're gonna have your canvas for the top as well as the drawstring to pull it tight. You're gonna have a set of Allen wrenches for installation. You're gonna have a box of the hardware, your rubber for the clamps for attaching the lower frame to the upper frame, as well as your console standoffs. Please, before beginning installation, you will have installation instructions included in the box. Please read this front to back to make sure you understand everything that's involved. And then also check the parts list to make sure everything that should be included is included. So next, we're gonna actually begin the installation. Before we begin, I want to go over the tools required to install the Pro 600 T-top for Make Wake Marine. First, you'll need a drill, a set of drill bits, a tape measure. I recommend getting a set of countersink drill bits. You'll need some zip ties. You'll need a hacksaw for cutting the console standoffs. If you want them shorter and closer to your console, you will need a hacksaw or something to cut the metal. You'll need some thread locker. You'll need a caulk gun, and you'll need 3M 5200 marine adhesive to use underneath the feet. All of the remaining tools for assembling the T-top are included. So there will be Allen wrenches included with the T-top for installing the bolts on the T-top frame. All right, we're gonna begin installing the Pro 600 T-top here on this boat. This is the 2003 Triton 240, which is a 24-foot center console. This process is the same as virtually every other center console boat. So to begin, you're gonna wanna take the 10mm large Allen wrench that comes with the tools, and you're gonna wanna set aside some of the larger bolts. I like to do this in the boat, but you can certainly do this on the ground before lifting it in the boat. So each side, you're gonna take the matching upper half and lower half. And you're gonna bolt them together. I'm gonna get the bolt started, and then I'll go back and tighten them up later. One thing I like to always tell people, these T-tops are aluminum and these threads are aluminum. The hardware is stainless steel, so the bolts should go in nice and easy. If they're not going in easy, then maybe you're not lined up correctly, and check to make sure that the bolt's going in straight, because you don't want to strip the threads. No need to torque these down. We're going to go back later and check to make sure everything's tight before we're complete. So now we'll switch over to the other side. So as you can see, this can easily be done by one person. Two people can also make it go a little bit easier as well. Now I'm going to begin assembling the upper frame for the Pro 600 T-top. You can tell that these two pieces are for the upper frame and the front because of the way they bend as the T-top bends forward in the front, giving it a nice aesthetic look. So what I'm going to do is line them up, and I'm going to get the large bolts started in these holes. All right, now that all the bolts are in, I'm going to tighten everything up. All right, that's the front half of the frame. Now we're going to repeat the process for the back half of the frame. These are the rubber inserts that attach the lower half of the frame to the upper half of the frame. They go inside of these clamps. One thing I recommend doing is cutting them in half. That way you have one section that's on the lower half of the clamp, one section that's on the upper half of the clamp, and it just makes assembling the lower frame to the top frame that much easier. Now that we got the rubber inserts installed in the clamps and the clamps open and ready to install the upper frame, we're gonna lift the front half of the upper frame in place. This is much easier with 2 people, so I will see you in a second. I'll have a helper help me lift this in place. All right, once you set the top frame on top of the T-top, you want to shut all the clamps, make sure you don't lose any of your rubber inserts. Before you tighten everything all the way down, you want to check your measurements between these clamps. You want to make sure it's symmetrical on each side, and you want to make sure the distance between the clamps is the same on the front and the rear. That distance is determined based on the bottom. So on this console, we decided 40.5 inches was the optimal width for the T-top around the center console. So I'm gonna install these clamps at 40.5 inches wide so that everything is nice and straight to the floor. Now that we got the T-top positioned exactly where we want it, we've checked multiple times to make sure it's square and everything's aligned left to right. The legs are perpendicular. What I'm gonna do is take a pencil and I'm gonna outline my feet. So I'm gonna put just a mark here around the outside, and then I'm going to put a little dot in the center, and that's going to be where I pre-drill my holes. All right, now that I marked my holes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-drill so the screws go in a little bit easier. Before you drill, you want to make sure you don't have any cables or any gas tanks or anything beneath the floor that you might hit when you drill. Now that we pre-drilled our holes, I'm going to use the countersink bit I was referring to earlier to put a little bit of an edge on these holes. This can also be done with a larger size drill bit, but since I have these, I'm going to use them. You don't need very much, just the outer layer of the gel coat, just a little bit of an edge on it. Now that we pre-drilled and countersunk our holes, I'm going to wipe away the fiberglass dust to get it out of the way so we can begin applying our 3M 5200. Now I'm going to apply the 3M 5200 underneath where the feet of the T-top are going to go. So I'm going to start out by putting some right above the bolt holes. And then I'm going to take some and put it around the perimeter. Now that we got our 3M 5200 applied underneath where the feet are going to go, we're going to make sure the bottom feet of the T-top are clean and dry, and we're going to set the T-top in place. Now we're going to begin screwing the T-top down to the deck. So I went ahead and placed some screws there, but I'm going to make sure that my screw holes are lined up with the holes that I pre-drilled on the floor. And then I'm going to go ahead and start tightening them down. It's normal for some of the 3M 5200 to squeeze out when you tighten this to the floor. So just take a rag and remove all the excess from around the outside. It's easier to do this now than to do it later after the 3M 5200 cures. After getting the majority of it removed, we'll take acetone and clean up the rest. Now we're gonna measure and mark and cut our console standoff braces. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna measure the distance between the T-top and your center console, and we're gonna mark these and cut them at exactly that length. Another tip, when you cut these console standoff braces, make sure you cut it and you measure it from the rounded side. This rounded side's gonna go up against the T-top, and this side's gonna go up against the console. So when you measure it from the rounded side and cut off from the other side. Now that I've marked my console standoff brace, I'm gonna cut it at the mark with a hacksaw. Now I'm gonna drill through the T-top so that I can install the console standoff brace. So I've already marked where I want it on both sides. They're both even. I'm gonna go ahead and drill through here, and I'm gonna start with a small bit and work my way up. One useful tip is to get a really long drill bit that'll let you drill through both the T-top and your center console all in one drill. That way when you go to put your console standoff in, it's perfectly aligned. So now I'm gonna drill this. So we just installed our console brace and pushed the threaded rod through from the inside. So now on the outside, I'm gonna put this aluminum cap and the cap nut. Now I can push the threaded rod all the way through. We're gonna tighten this up as well as tighten up the nut inside in just a second. Now grab two 10mm wrenches and you can start tightening up your console standoffs. We got our 4 console standoff braces attached and tightened inside. T-top should be nice, rock solid at this point. The only thing left to do is to put the rear back frame on for the canopy. That concludes assembly of the Pro 600 T-top from Make Awake Marine. The only step that's left is to go back and loosen everything up, put some red Loctite on it, and then torque it back down. You just want to be sure if you ever plan on folding the top that you don't put Loctite on these middle bolts here, because you will have to loosen those up to fold the top. But everything else, go ahead and put some Loctite on. Other than that, I'm going to see you in just a bit and we're going to put the canopy on. Now we're going to install the canopy on the Pro 600 T-top. So this is the drawstring, which is going to pull it tight. We don't need that for now. What you're going to want to do is open up your canopy and you're going to want to find the tag that says front. This should be on the front and facing down. So go ahead, throw your canopy up over. Before you use the drawstring to attach the canopy to the top frame, get some zip ties and hold it in place. This will make attaching the drawstring a lot easier. All right, so I just got the canopy pulled tight. I used about 2 dozen zip ties, so it was pulled tight all the way around. That's gonna make it a lot easier to use this drawstring and keep it tight as you do it. So now I'm gonna show you how to lace up the drawstring around the outside of the canopy. All right, so to lace the T-top, take one end, go down through the hole, then you're gonna come over the tubing, you're gonna come back out the same hole from the bottom up, just like so, and then you can move on to the next one. So on the next hole, go down the hole, pull it up over the tubing, come back out from the bottom up, and then go to your next hole. Try to keep it tight as you work your way around. I like to start in the front of the canopy, that way I can tie it on the back side of the canopy. The string's oversized, so I've already trimmed off this side here. What I did is I tied a knot on one side that's super tight, and then I'm gonna take the other end and I'm gonna pull it through so that it tightens everything up together. Make sure that's tight, and then you're gonna tie another knot so everything stays nice and tight. Now that I got my knot tied nice and tight, I went ahead and trimmed it so I just have a little bit on each end. I'm gonna take a lighter and I'm gonna burn each end of the wire so that it doesn't fray later on. Just gonna melt it nice and tight together. The last step to finish installation of the Pro 600 Series T-top is to go back around and cut all the zip ties that we installed earlier. Make sure your canopy's still nice and tight all the way around, and you're good to go. This thing looks awesome, and as you can see, is rock solid on this boat. This installation of the T-top took me and a helper 2 to 2.5 hours. I did mostly everything myself other than just lifting some of the components up top. Thanks for watching this installation video. If you have any questions or you're unsure about anything before beginning, please call us or message us. We'd be glad to help. Other than that, enjoy your time out in the water.